Hi there, I'm Charishma, and this is your Figma prototyping workshop. So, a little bit about me before we get started. I'm an alumni of the course, and I've been a TA twice, and I came back this year just for a bit of help. So, for this workshop itself, it'll be conducted by me and Casey. So, I'll be covering the introduction, basic design, advanced design, and prototyping. So, basically, all that we need to create a simple prototype in Figma. And then responsive design and gestures are some of our new topics that will be covered by Casey. So let's get started. So firstly, what is Figma? Figma is a design tool. So it's like Google Docs for design because you and your friends can come together and design something together in real time. So this design can be something like some shapes or artwork or anything of that sort, but Figma also lets you do prototyping. So it's a prototyping tool where you can create realistic mobile prototypes, web prototypes, or maybe something else also, and you can link them together like it's a real app. Thirdly, you can also create design systems. So design systems, we mean something like style guides. So if you want to specify fonts and colors and also UI components. So like buttons, accordions, drop-down menus, you want to standardize how that looks across your team. You can do that using design systems in Figma. And lastly, Figma provides this tool called FigJam, which is an online collaborative whiteboard. So it can be used for all kinds of meetings, for things like brainstorming, taking down notes, ideation, or anything of that sort. So we can take a look at that later as well. So before we get started, all of you should be having a Figma account first. So if you don't have one, you can go to figma.com and sign up for an account. And I highly encourage you to get the education account so that many of the pro features are available to you. If you want, you can also get the desktop app. It is optional, but I would recommend you getting that because it seems to be a bit more responsive. And if not, then the desktop app and the web app are pretty similar, so you should be able to figure out where the functions are pretty easily also. So this is what we'll be building today, which is the Instagram app profile page. And how we'll be doing this is I'll be going through the slides here, and I will be going through my Figma over here. So we'll have all the steps here that you can also access. The slides will be made available to you. And I'll be showing you what steps I'm taking here within the Figma interface. So we'll start with basic design. And for that, what we first have to do is to create a design file. So after you create an account on figma.com, and you have either the desktop app or the web app, you can create a design file. So let's say you have a desktop app like this. You can create a new design file over here. So there's going to be different UIs. This is probably the one that you have to go, the blue version. So a new design file if you're on the desktop. And if you are on web and you go to figma.com, it should be similar. So it's like this. There might be also something like this where a design file is on top. So everyone create a design file by clicking on that. And it should open a new file, which is completely empty. Once you're done with that, you can see these are the different parts of the interface. I won't be going through all of them one by one right now, but in case you want to refer to the exact name of each thing on the interface, you can look through it here. So I'll just be going through the functionalities of each thing over here. And in case you want the name and you're confused about it, then you can come to this page and look at the interface tool names. So firstly, what we want to do is to navigate the workspace. So learn how you can move around, zoom in and zoom out. So if you have an interface like this, just so that we know how it's moving, I'm going to draw a square. Yeah, and then I can move around. So this is panning. And for panning, you can either use the normal gestures on your touchpad or touch screen if you're on your iPad, or you can use hold space and drag. So if I hold space and drag, it's again, I'm panning. and this is using keyboard gestures. So for zooming in, you can do your normal touchpad gestures or mouse scrolling. And if you want, you can use Control plus scroll or Control plus or minus button. So you can hold Control or Command, and it's plus, plus, minus, minus, or scroll. Okay, so we'll be starting firstly with wireframing. What we want to do is to create a wireframe of that Instagram profile page. So firstly, what we need to do is to create a frame. A frame is basically like the house, the place where you're going to house all parts of your screen. So this is the main place where you put the elements of your screen, and everything else goes inside of it. And we'll be doing that using this frame tool. So I'm going to go to my existing page, and this is what we're going to make. So I'm going to have it here for reference. We'll be making this available to you also. And what we want is a frame. So on top, you will see a bar like this. In case your UI is different, then you can go to the question mark here and go get the old UI. So I'm right now using the old UI. Some of you might have the experimental new UI. So you can get the old UI from the question mark over here. And make sure you have this if you want to follow exactly what I'm doing. So now for doing this, creating a frame, I'll go here to the region tool. So it's right beside the mouse is the region tool. And there's three different options. What I need is a frame. A frame is where I can put my screen designs. So on the right, there's going to be this panel. And for my prototype, I'm going to be selecting the iPhone 13 mini. So if you want to follow exactly along, you can choose this, or you can choose one of the other designs also. So there's different phone styles or anything else also, but I'm going to be selecting iPhone 13 mini, and this was added into my workspace. So I can go back to the mouse and move it around, and you can see there's guidelines that are showing me how to align this. So these are some of the things that Figma provides to you so that you can align your design exactly how you want it to be. So I've added a frame onto my design using the region tool. And now I'm going to be adding shapes into this, like this, so that it looks like a wireframe. And these are the different shapes that I need. So firstly, we'll start with these ellipses and also these rectangles. So how do we do that? We have the shape tool, which is beside the region or frame tool that we use. So we have the shape tool, and we'll start with a circle. So on the shape tool, any of the shapes might be selected. So how do you select the shape that you want? You click on the drop down and you select whichever one you want. So I'm going to select ellipse for a circle. And since we want our ellipse to have equal height and width, we'll have to hold shift when drawing our circle. So I'm holding shift and I'm drawing our circle. And you can see the width and height is always going to be the same based on the indicators below. So I'm going to make it about 90 and I'm going to place it here. Okay, the placement, the exact placement or alignment does not matter now. We're just going to try to make a wireframe that follows the layout of the Instagram profile page. So this is my profile image. Then I'll have these circles for my stories. So I'm going to add smaller circles here. And if I want multiple, I can just copy paste. So I selected Control C, Control V. It'll be pasted right on top. I have to move it to where I want it. And you can see the guidelines are helping me align them in a straight line. So these circles, they were created using the ellipse tool here. Now I want these buttons and these squares. So for that, I'll be using the rectangle tool. So under the drop down, there's a rectangle. I selected rectangle and I'll be drawing these buttons here and copy and paste it here. So I'm just going to align it to this. So to select all of these together, I can just drag my mouse across all of them and move them down together. And now I need this image gallery at the bottom. So I'll be using the rectangle tool, but this time it needs to be squares. So I have to use shift so that the height and width remains the same. So shift and draw this. Okay, so I think we can use 124 for our squares. So you can get the exact one like this. And if you're not getting the exact value, what you can do is when drawing the rectangle itself, on the right, there's different options that we have. And you can see this is selected. So this is unselect and select. When it's selected, it means the proportions and constraints. So it's going to remain a square. And that is when we can change this, where if the width changes, the height will also change to be equal. So I'm going to make it 124. So that's two ways of drawing squares in the exact shapes you want. And I'm going to have these three, I select them together, paste them here. Okay, we have this. Now what I'm going to do is going to create rectangles for the header and footer as well. You can see here there's no actual outline for it, but there is a header and a footer. So even though the color is white and it mixes with the background, we need to create separate groups for them so that they're easier to move around later. So I'm going to take the rectangle tool and draw our header, and then rectangle tool and draw our footer. Okay, so this is a part of our wireframe for the Instagram profile page. And once we are done with this, we'll move to the second part, which is adding text to our wireframe. So you can use the text tool, which is also over here, which is two tools outside after the shape tool, which is a text tool, beside the pen tool. And you can use this to write down what you want to display on your profile page. So your username, things like your post follower count, and other things that you may want to show. So I'm going to follow this. And I want my header to be a bit bigger. I want to put my username here. So this is probably behind, so I brought it to front. And this one is also, the reason I'm not able to see is because it's outside this particular screen. So I'm going to move these two within the screen. So I'll be explaining more about this also later. So I got my username here. Then I can put another username here too, like this, or my name here. And then just follow along. It doesn't have to be the exact same, but you can have a few of them. And it's okay if it's not aligned. Okay, you can see it's not aligned, and that does not matter right now. All we need to do is to display what we want to do, what we want to have on our profile page in the wireframe itself. So it's okay if it's not aligned. A little bit is enough, and this is fine right now because we'll be going through how to align this perfectly later. So we have a wireframe now, and the next step is to do some more advanced things so that it's proper hi-fi prototyping. So for our hi-fi prototyping, we can start with setting the attributes for each of the elements on our screen. So attributes could include things such as the colors, the shadows, the border radius, or other effects that you want your elements to have so that they look more closer to the real thing. So we'll start with setting the attributes of the follow button that we have on our Instagram profile page. So these are some of the attributes that we need, like the border radius, the fill color, and the shadow effects. So let's try that out. So we want our follow button to have a blue shade, and to change the color, we can use this attribute panel under the fill part. So under fill, there's this D9, 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 which is the color of our rectangle for the follow button. But we want it to be blue. So you can select this square, click on the square, and you have a color picker here. So there's various options you can use to change the color, but we're going to use the color picker and pick a shade of blue. And if you want the exact shade, then you can also type it in here with the hex code. So I'll see what the hex code of this is, 1877F2. So for this, you can just 1877F2, and it will be the same shade. Okay, we have the color. Next, we want to change the border radius. So for border radius, you can go on top. There's different values here, such as the X position, the Y position, the width and height, and the angle of rotation. But what we want is this last one, which is the corner radius. So corner radius, I'm going to change it from 0, which is a sharp radius, to 5. So that is as a slight curve for the radius. Now, if you see the original, there's also like a certain shadow. So we'll be adding that. So I'm going to select the button and I'm going to add an effect. And there is a drop shadow. I want to make this shadow more subtle. So to change the effects of this drop shadow, I can click on this brightness sun icon for the effect settings and change it here. So maybe make it um, so I make the blur 5 and the Y value 2 to make it a little more subtle. And also lastly, the follow button should have a white follow rather than a black follow for the text so that there's enough contrast. So for that contrast, we'll take the follow button, the text itself, and then for the fill, instead of the black here, we'll select the white, which is the top left. And that is our follow button. So we can set the attributes for all of the other items that we have here also. For example, the header should be white, the footer should be white. Okay, to follow that. And then you can also change the text itself. So some of the text is not the same size. So some of them is larger, some of them are smaller, some of them are different colors. So we can do that now. So firstly, this username on top should be bold, medium, or bold. I'm going to do medium. So I'm going to do semi-bold. And then this is supposed to be smaller. So I'm going to make it 13, 12. Okay. This can also be smaller, 12, 12. And this 13 with the link color. So I can choose a blue shade here, or I can just select this. So that is 0F4D73 here also. This also is a bit smaller. Okay, so we've changed these text attributes to have certain styles for the text itself. So the font, the how thin or bold you want it to be can be changed here. So once we have this, we can move on to the next part. And that part is inserting icons into our design. So there's various icons that we have. There's this back button, there's this settings icon, which is three dots vertically, then adding friends, these three here, and this home or tab bar. So what I'm going to do now is just add one home icon. If you want, you could add the other icons as well, but for now, I'll be adding a home icon and using the same icon across just to show that the icons are being used. So we can see how we can add the home icon into our design. And for that, we'll be using a plugin. So to use plugins, we have to use the resources option. This button right here is the resources option. And here we go to plugins. In plugins, you can type Iconify. I already have it here, but I'm going to type Iconify. And that gives us this plugin option. So I can click on that. Let me try again. And it's loading Iconify here. And it opens a window like this. So when you first open it, it's going to be something like this. And you want to search here for what type of icon you're looking for. So what do I want? I want this home icon. So I'm going to search home. And there's various options I have. I'm going to pick this one. And when you select this, it'll just show this over here and you can import that icon into your design. So I click on import icon and it should be imported right beside your design. So for me, it's a bit far away, but for you, it should be right beside your design. And you can move it. So there'll be something like this, material symbols, or whatever the name is, and you can move that frame inside your design. So I'm moving it here. And you can see it's too small compared to the size that we need here. So you can close this and you can set the settings of your frame here. So we want something like 22 for our width. Let's see if that works, or we need something bigger. So I'm going to constrain proportions here so that the width and height change at the same time. And 22 is not enough because this is not the same size as the frame. So we'll try 32. And I think that's better. So that's what we have here. This is the home icon for the home tab on our tab bar. And if you want more, you can import whichever icons you want, but I'm going to be using this for our design. So when you're pasting again, just click outside and then paste. And you have the tab bar. So once you have that, once you've used the Iconify plugin to add whichever icons you want to have, the next thing we'll be learning is how you can display images inside your profile page. So there's ways to do it, but I'll be going through what I've found to be the easiest way for me. So let's say I have an image, so and I go for images, and I have an image like this. Okay, so this image, I can copy this and paste into my design. So copy image, and then select your shape, and then go to fill, and click the color that we had clicked on earlier to change the color of the shape. But this time, instead of filling it up with a solid color, we'll be filling it up with a picture, an image, which is the third option here. So after you click here, you go to the third option, the image, and you can choose which image you want to fill it with. So either you can pick an image from your file browser, or you can copy an image and paste it here. So I take this, I copy, and I hover over here and paste. And you can see that image has been added into my shape. So that image is now filling my shape. I can try it with other images too. Okay, copy image, select, fill, image, hover, paste. So you need to be hovering on this for it to work. Okay. The other option is using your file browser. So I can select this, fill, image, choose image, and I can choose something from my photos. Okay, so those are two ways you can add images. You can explore other ways also if you don't like these, but these are the two that I've found to be most useful for me. So once you have images in, you can also see on this toolbar, there's adding a comment. So you can use that to write down what you want. So you can select that and wherever you want to add a comment. So this is based on the position. You can maybe for here, I can add a comment saying, let's use another blue. And anyone else who you are sharing this file with will be able to see this comment. So it's for collaborating with your teammates. It's another collaboration feature. And you can move it around where you think it should be. Okay, I'm going to move it out again. Now, next thing we're going to see is that left sidebar that we had, what it does. So that left sidebar is called the layers panel. So the layers panel contains all of the objects that you have added into your workspace. And you need to manage all of the layers in your panel so that it's easier to work when you're working with bigger design projects and you want to make changes. So let's take a look at how that works. So this is, I'm going to select the mouse icon and select my frame, which says iPhone 13 mini 1. And this is my frame, and I can see on the left layers panel, everything that I have here is being highlighted, and everything inside it is also highlighted. So there's the icons that I use, the text that I've added, and then also all of the rectangles that I've added into the design and the images and the circles and everything that I've done. So if you look at this, if you take a glance at this layers, you cannot really tell what's happening here. And you can definitely improve the organization here. So for improving organization, some things you can do is rename all of these layers. So for example, this frame, it's called iPhone 13 mini 1. I can double click this text and call it something else. So Instagram profile page. So what I did is double click here and rename it to what I want. And for whatever is inside, I can do the same thing. But instead of just renaming all of this, the first thing that we need to do is group them together so that it makes sense how they are moving around together and how together they make one thing. So, for example, this button is actually one rectangle and one text box, but we want both of them to be together to make up the follow button. So we need to group these two together. And for that, what we'll be doing is selecting both this and this. So you can just drag your mouse across both of them and then right click, group selection. So what you did just now is you grouped that rectangle and that text together, which means this group would have been created. You can see it's called group 12. It may be another name for you, group 1 maybe. And inside this group 12, if you click on the drop down, you can see the follow text and the blue rectangle. And you can rename this to whatever you want, again by double clicking. So I double click, and I call it whatever I want. So this grouped item now is our follow button. I can do the same for message. I can select both of them by dragging across and right click, group selection. So if you don't want to right click and select this, there's also the option of using Control G or Command G, but I'm going to use the right click option. And then that's our message button. And this can be our, so followers following. And I'm going to group these two by dragging across, right click, group selection, posts. If you don't want to drag across, another option is you select this and you hold shift and you select this. So both of them are selected together. So if you want to select multiple, you select your first, you hold shift and you select the others. So I'm going to do the same thing here. Select this, hold shift and select this. Both of them selected together and right click, group selection, followers, these two, group selection, following. So you can continue doing that for all of the groups that make sense in this design here. So these two, group, story, these two, group, bio, and then all of these 9 images can be grouped together inside an image gallery. Now you can also group this username and that previous header rectangle that we added to make the actual header. So group selection and make it the header. And that 5 icons that we added earlier, along with the rectangle behind it, all of these, so you can drag across all of these, the rectangle and the 5 icons can be grouped together. Right click, group selection to create the footer. So you can see now our page, if you select this, has better organization. So all of these can be, okay, I'm gonna group all of these into stories. And you can see everything is better aligned here. This can also move inside bio, so the image can also, and instead of adapts 91, I'll call it profile image. So you can see our page is well organized here. And you can move it, the items inside it above or below based on whether they are supposed to be on top or on bottom. For example, there's this header. And inside this header, there's this text and there's this rectangle. If you want the rectangle to be on top of the text, then you can move it here and you can't see the text anymore. So this is because the text is still there, but it's behind the rectangle. If you want the text to be on top of the rectangle, which we want here, we can just move it on top. So that's how you can do alignment using the layers panel as well. So you can look apart from the groups that we did. So groups are signified by these dotted squares that we have. There's other, you can say, icons that are showed for other items. So these depend based on what you've added. So there's the frames, everything that we put inside our page, that's a frame. This page itself is a frame. The icons are also inside frames. Then we have the shapes, the circles. So these are the circles. The rectangles will be like this. Then we also have the text, which is the T. And we have other things also, such as the empty hollow diamond, which is the component, which we'll be learning about later. So, advanced design. So, congrats on finishing your basic profile page of Instagram. We'll be now going through some of the advanced concepts that will make it easier for you to prototype in Figma.